Born in Denver, Colorado, Colin Stranahan has been immersed in music from an early age, quickly establishing himself as a gifted drummer on the local scene. A 2005 National Foundation for Advancement in the Arts Presidential Scholar, he further honed his craft at the Brubeck Institute and Thelonious Monk Institute of Jazz. A winner of the 2012 Thelonious Monk Drum Competition, he's now one of the most sought-after drummers globally, collaborating with artists like Kurt Rosenwinkel, Fred Hersch, and Herbie Hancock. Based in Brooklyn, he also serves as an educator at prestigious institutions such as London's Royal Academy of Music, inspiring the next generation of jazz musicians. So we're looking forward to diving into his story today. So, Colin, good to see you. Thanks for joining me today.
Great to see you too. Thanks for having me.
My
Nice to
pleasure.
be here.
So, we just started 2025. It's January 14th. So, what's on the agenda for you this year that you're excited about? Anything coming up you're really looking forward to?
Yeah, absolutely. 2024 was a busy year of touring with a bunch of different people. And that's only going to continue into this year. I've been really enjoying playing with Pat Bianchi. He's a great organ player I play with, and Troy Roberts is on saxophone. And we have a lot of dates coming up and a lot of touring around Europe and the States, and my own trio with Glenn Zaleski and Rick Rosato. We're going to have some touring later this year. We're going to Asia, um, and still have some dates with Jonathan Kreisberg, the guitarist. I still play with him, and we have some touring as well. So lots of touring coming up, and then I plan to record another album of my own this year that's in the works. So a lot to be excited about, and a lot of teaching too. I'm next month going up to Eastman School of Music to do a master class and then perform with some of the faculty there, um, along with headed back to Denver to do some teaching up in Boulder at CU, um, doing some master classes. So just kind of more of the same stuff, but the consistency is great, and I feel very grateful and lucky to be doing that, and very excited about those kind of things coming up. So
Yeah, well, three
um,
very, very strong bands, but all very different. We're talking about
absolutely,
organ
yeah.
trio, drums, organ, sax, piano trio, your standard trio. And then is a trio with Kreisberg or quartet?
And most of the time it's quartet with piano, bass, and drums. So yeah, three very different projects, different musical statements, different approaches, different um yeah, it's just three completely different things,
When you
which is
approach
great.
these different ensembles,
Yeah.
does it feel like a different headspace in a way, or is it just that you're sort of in the moment trying to fit the music?
Mm.
Because I know when I play, if I played in certain bands, it can almost feel like different worlds, even though you're improvising. Can you talk a little bit about how you approach those, or if they're all just the same to you?
Yeah, no, I mean in some ways they are the same because we're playing uh we're improvising and all of that, but it's true, and it's a good point you make, is that and question that they're all very different. It is a different headspace with somebody like Kurt Rosenwinkel or Jonathan Kreisberg. Playing with them, the compositions are pretty much worked out, and especially the drum parts are very specific. It's almost like, I tell people, it's almost like playing in a rock band in a way, because I have a part that I play, and it's pretty consistently throughout the song, whatever that is. Like there's a very, like when they compose, they really think about the drums. And sometimes it's been like, okay, well, what in this context, what would you play? Or Colin, how would you approach this? Or what would it sound like? And there's a bit of collaboration there. But I would say for the most part, it's been, hey, this is the drum part here. So play that. And then, which is cool. And at first it was challenging because it's like, okay, but this is jazz. I want to improvise. I want to bring my own thing to this. How do I do that? And over the years, you realize that you find your moments and parts within the music where you can sort of be yourself and put your identity on it without taking away from the composition or the feeling of the composition. Um, And so that is certainly what happens in that context. With Pat and Troy, it's completely different. It's we have maybe the same tunes we play, but every night it's completely different. Like whatever happens, happens. And that's really fun too. It's an adventure, it's a musical adventure to sort of, sometimes things work out great. Sometimes it's like, oh man, that's not working at all. But we're all kind of on the same page, and that's really fun, a fun way of playing, and especially in front of an audience, because they can see the joy of like us trying to figure it out in the moment and coming up with something maybe in the moment. Um, and but there's chemistry there, so it tends to work out, and it's sort of similar also in the trio with Glenn and Rick that our trio. It's not mine, it's ours, but we've been playing for so many years, and we know each other so well, and we're all very close friends. And so there's so much trust, and so there is a lot of written material, but there's also that element of it's kind of in the middle of the two we were talking about. Some of the compositions are pretty written, but then anything could change on a dime. It's very open, and there's a lot of trust, and it's also kind of an adventure. So the headspace is, I mean, I'm always approaching it in the same way as I do with music. Is like, okay, uh, when I start to play, I try to kind of start to play from nothing. I try to like not to have any preconceived ideas of anything, even if it's, one of those bands where it's a composition where I know what I'm going to play and what the groove is. But I always kind of try to approach it the same way, saying, okay, let's start from no preconceived ideas, don't know what's going to happen here, and just let the music come to me. The music always tells you what to play if you're really in tune with the other musicians and yourself and in the moment and prepared for the moment. And so,
Sure.
yeah,
No, that's great. And you would also mention Kurt Rosenwinkel, which is a great topic as well, because when I talk to drummers or bass players or pianists, everyone, when you kind of ask people, who do you want to work with? Like, I would say maybe like 75% of them say, I'd love to work with Kurt Rosenwinkel. And I
for
know you
sure.
started working with Kurt probably around 2010 or something like that, playing
That's
in one of
right.
his
Yeah.
first configurations of the Standards Trio with Eric Rivas.
Hmm.
So, can you talk a little bit about how that relationship developed and what it was like to approach the standards trio? Because I think that was really like he said he really wanted to do standards around that time.
Absolutely. Yeah. So um, I have always been as you said, many people have said to you, I've been a massive fan of Kurt's for a very long time. In fact, I've told this story before, but I was helping my mom move a few years ago, and I found this journal of when I was like 9 years old. And I made a list of musicians I wanted to play with, and Kurt was the first musician I wanted to play with. And I even said I want to play with him at the Village Vanguard, and I did that, which is awesome. But uh, so I say that to say from an early age, I was really influenced by his music and and really always admired it. So I always listened to all of his albums and I learned all of his music. I really constantly was working on it, or if I could go hear him play live, I would do that. I would always, I'd always be working on the music. It was very influential to me. And so I didn't meet him until I was actually at the Monk Institute. And when we were there, they asked us, "Hey, what musicians would you like us to bring in to work with you?" And a few of us said, "For Rosenwinkel, that would be great." And it worked out, and he came, and it was really cool. And it wasn't, I didn't run up to him and say, "Oh man, like I know all your tunes, like I love your playing, I want to work with you." I was very excited, but I trusted that we had a week to work together. I trusted that there would be a time where we could really connect, and so in at the Monk Institute, now the Hancock Institute, when musicians would come in to work with you, they would bring their compositions and sort of pass music out, and you would play with that musician with the people in the program. And so he kept passing these tunes out, and I was like, "Oh, I know this one." Um, and so I was playing with my eyes closed, and he would kind of look over and be like, "Oh, like, hey man, you're not reading." And I was just like, "Yeah, I really love this tune. I know this tune." And so over the course of the week, we became very close pretty quickly, and we talked a lot, and I had some one-on-one time with him too, like a lesson, and we ended up just playing the whole time and went through a bunch of his tunes, and he kind of just said to me, he said, "Hey man, let me get your phone number," like, and I thought, "Oh man, this is awesome." And a few months went by, and then he started to call me, and it was interesting because we had talked a lot about his compositions and his own music and his compositions, but he said, "I'm going to be playing trio and playing some standards. Would you be in?" I was like, "Of course, I would love to do that." So that was kind of how it started playing with him, and that's how it all worked out. And it's a story I like to tell my students now too, because to me, it's really about, I try to encourage young people or just anyone, any musicians, if there's a musician that you really love and there's someone that you really want to work with, learn their repertoire, learn their music, and um, stay ready. You never know what can happen. There might
But
be,
don't
I'm
tell
not
them, but don't tell them unless they ask you, like,
exactly,
because
because
you might scare them off, right?
I've heard some stories of people saying that and it not being the case, and then they get hired, and then something else happens. And so, anyways, stay ready, but also, yeah, if there's someone you really love, just really work on that music, and I've had some students that have done that and have started working with people they've really wanted to work with, and that's a really cool thing to see. And so anyways, that's how I started working
No,
with
that's
him
great. I
for sure.
remember hearing some of those, and you and Eric Rivas, just the quarter note was just so strong. It was
Um,
beautiful.
thanks.
So, and that's one thing about, you have such a incredible swing feel. It
Oh, thank
almost
you.
seems like, there's always this, feeling sometimes like drummers can be like pushing like behind or forward. I'm sure I don't have to get into that stuff with you, but yours just seems to like kind of coast, like right in the middle. And if I'm wrong, you can tell me, but that's always kind of
No, I appreciate that a lot. That's a big compliment. Thank you. Um, been working on it a lot and uh, playing along with a lot of records over the years, and just trying to learn and talk to different drummers, different bass players, and um, yeah, I want it to feel very natural, and yeah. So thank you.
No, but I mean,
I
you know
just
what I mean, though?
appreciate
Like,
it.
I
So
kind of
thank
feel
you.
like when you
Yeah.
listen to Elvin Jones and Jimmy
Mm.
Garrison, like, Elvin, like they were in two different places, but it locked in. I mean,
Right. Right.
but but there's a million different combinations it could go, and
Sure.
but yeah, there's just something about yours that it just seems to like it's like just kind of coasting right where it needs to be. And
Mm.
I'm just curious. Have you thought about it? Like, you want it to just be like almost in the middle, so to speak, like, or
Right. Well, I generally think and feel like, and it depends on as you said, the hookup, but yeah, I generally play on top of the beat, but especially when I'm playing swing, I try to sort of be right in the middle,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah,
And and that's something I really practice too, is I work on playing certain tempos with like either a bass player or walking bass or metronome, and kind of try to experiment moving around on the beat without speeding up or slowing down. And so I feel like that came from listening to people like Roy Haynes, who has such a wide beat when he plays. And so that's just me kind of trying to emulate that, and just make it feel really good, and try to make it feel like it is down right in the center of the beat.
no,
So
that's
that's
awesome.
true. That's where it comes from. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Thank you.
Roy Haynes' influence. We just lost Roy Haynes, a couple of months
Yeah,
ago. Can you? What does his music mean to you?
everything. It's he's seen a few times when he was coming at a really young age. And there was one concert in particular, which was in Boulder, Colorado, and where he was playing with his Birds of a Feather band, which was with Dave Kikoski on piano, who was somebody that I've gotten to play with and known, and is a good friend now over the years, which is crazy thinking back about this concert. So it was Dave Kikowski. Christian McBride was on bass, who was another guy who I have gotten to know over the years, and really a lot of the guys in the band. But Kenny Garrett was on alto, and Nicholas Payton was on trumpet, and it was just the most incredible concert I ever heard, and just the command that Roy had with the band, and just the sort of spiritual element of what they were playing and how they would stretch. And Roy is just the coolest person ever. He always had that swagger, and um, he just the way he would play the drums, and using the flat ride, and the way he used the hi-hat, not always on 2 and 4, but comping with his hi-hat and the looseness that he had. But just that sound, that crisp sound of going around the drums, and everything he played, every note that he plays has meaning behind it. There's never something that's just to get through a phrase. Every single note has weight and meaning to it. And it's everything to me. It's something I think about every time I play. I mean, it's like magnetic when you hear him. It's just everything is so focused and has meaning to it.
Yeah.
And then you hear Marcus, his grandson, and he sounds like that too. Marcus has that
Yeah, it seems
magnetic,
he seems he's always at the Village Vanguard playing drums. Like,
absolutely. And I'm always there listening to him play.
no,
Yep.
but I like how you also mentioned before. I want to just bring it back to something else we talked about, which was the drum parts. Like, and I remember, I think like for instance when I saw you play trio with Kreisberg at the bar next door, and like you play like Stella by Starlight, and it has like a
Yeah.
very specific um compositional element that needs to happen.
Hmm.
And that was a great performance. I remember very well. What do you think the most challenging thing is about performing? Obviously, it's rewarding, but do you find, I mean, I'm talking to a lot of musicians on my podcast. Some say, oh, it's easy, it's home, but some say, no, there are certain things that are challenging. I'm just kind of curious what you find challenging about performing live, whether
Yeah,
it's that at a club or, festival. So,
that's a great question. Yeah, of course, I think it's different for everybody. It also depends again on the context. But I think one thing that I've been thinking about a lot, because I don't necessarily get nervous anymore. What really helped with that is I quit drinking caffeine, and that really helped me before performing.
like in
I,
general, just quit caffeine.
yeah, I don't drink coffee anymore. I don't. I mean, once in a while I might have like a little tea or something, but that really affected my nerves before I would play, and I never really realized it until years later. But
Stimulant.
yeah, totally. And so, but for me, it's just about being consistent. Like if you're on a long tour, I've been doing these like this last year I did a lot of like 4 week tours, playing almost every night, like a couple nights off here and there, but mostly playing. And so in that situation, I feel like it's just being consistent with performing at that level every night, not really ever having a moment where you're just kind of like dialing it, or just kind of like going through the motions, or
Phoning it in.
really phoning it in. Thank you. uh and every room is different, and a lot of times especially this summer, I did a like a 5 week tour, and a lot of the venues were outdoors, and sometimes you get maybe a sound guy that's used to doing rock, or uh changes the board a lot. And so I've experienced in the however many years I've been doing this, I've experienced a lot of different approaches to how to handle situations like that. And I've seen a lot of people get really angry and annoyed and start yelling.
I
But I
hate
try to
playing
be,
outside. I hate it more.
yeah, it's tough. It's tough. It's really tough. Yeah. And so to me, it's just about that consistency and really trying to keep the music the main focus, and those other things that um come up, or being outside, and things becoming difficult in the moment, just trying to really just sometimes I realize in those moments I'm focused on myself, or like something about myself, or about my sound. It's like as soon as I listen to the other musicians and just sort of try to get deeper into the music in that moment, it kind of takes me out of that headspace. And so um I think that's a big part of it. Another big part of it, which doesn't have a lot to do with music, but does, is just like lifestyle choices, and taking better care of myself. Like I've been touring for a long time now, and I never used to exercise on the road. I never used to, I really enjoyed sleeping because of jet lag and all of that. But I get out and I run every day, and I have to say that that's really changed the musical part too. I feel like I have so much more energy. I feel more in tune. I feel like I have a lot more focus, and it really comes down to just taking care of yourself, you know. I think being really real, like being on the road and playing in clubs at night or at festivals, you know, you have access to a lot of drinks and things like this that you can, you know, you can have a really good time, and I love to do that. And also the amounts of food that you can have when you're on the road. And but just really for me, it took me a while to figure out like, oh yeah, you gotta take care of yourself too and not indulge all the time and just really, you know, make good choices. And it's really changed my life for the better. And it's really helped my performing and that consistency that I was kind of talking about.
Yeah, no, the longevity you want to have as a perf.
Longevity. That's right. That's right.
Yeah, because touring is just exhausting, even if it's for a few days. Like, and the smallest thing can throw it off.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
I always say, and I'm sure you've heard this, that you know, people ask me, "Oh, what's it like being a musician?" You know, what? And I say, "Well, the job is the traveling. That's the job. Everything else is the fun part. It's just the traveling part can be, it's gotten a lot more tricky these days too. But
Yeah.
um anyway,
No, the traveling is what sucks. It's like
yeah,
that's
exactly.
the work, you know. It's not, you know, you don't have like you really have time to like do stuff. And if you do stuff, you'll be exhausted for the gig.
Exactly.
Especially when we do like little things. No, this was a great conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time, and I hope we can do it again.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. So Instagram and website, anything like that you want to plug?
Yeah, my Instagram, I'm always kind of on there. The website is we'll be back soon, Colin Stranahan, music.com, but you can find me at Instagram at Colin Stranahan, and I post pretty much everything there and my gigs and whatever else. So
Awesome.